Welcome to this edition of MDM Live, August 14th, 2020. My name's Tom Gale. I'm the CEO of Modern Distribution Management. MDM is a market research and media company that provides market intelligence, trend analysis, market analytics tools focused on wholesale distribution and industrial markets globally. Thanks for joining us today. Our program's 1 hour, and in our first half hour, we'll be talking with Max Meister, CEO of Ludwig Meister, and then in our second half hour, we will be talking about sales transformation. My co-host Mike Marks and I will be sharing some of the key concepts from the past 3 years of our combined research and also the, I guess some of the highlights, Mike, that we have been putting together for each of the previous 3 sales GPS conferences. And we'll be talking more about that later in the program.
Short version of our greatest hits.
Perfect. Look forward to that. So before we jump in, I just want to also thank our sponsors for our Sales Transformation Network and Sales GPS Conference coming up September 1st and 2nd. And they are helping to make all of this possible. So with that, I'd like to jump in and introduce, well, you know, before I introduce Max, I'll put up this photo here because it's a great photo that Max just sent me. But Mike, you know, we haven't, I mean, we could pretend we haven't talked in a month, but the fact is we talk at least once a week and probably more. But you know, how have you been in the last month?
I've been living the pandemic dream. I mean, instead of going to Europe for the summer, which is what Meryl and I normally do, we're taking a car trip next week, going on holiday, and instead of going to Paris, we're going to Dolly World. So, you know, as my son would say, it's the same but different. So we're getting out and around. We're busy. It's really interesting that a lot of folks, a lot of distributors are still kind of like in this turtle thing, just hunkering down, waiting for this to go back to where it was in January, and you don't hear anything from them. But there are a lot of folks that are really stepping up, and this is a real opportunity for leadership. So it's been a lot of fun. There's people talking about acquisitions and sales transformation and digital and analytics. We're busy.
The big gap, the big change since we were together last a month ago is this gap that's forming right now. And it's exactly what you mentioned. And it's around analytics, it's around digital transformation, and it's around sales transformation. And so for that reason, I'm really delighted to welcome you, Max. Ludwig Meister is located in Munich, Germany, and Max is the CEO. He was last year MDM's Digital Transformation Award winner, one of several that we awarded last year, and we'll talk about that as well. Max's company has been undergoing a digital transformation for 8 years now, Max?
Yeah, around about 7 to 8 years, yes.
Yeah. So just to kick off, tell us a little bit about Ludwig Meister, please.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So Ludwig Meister, we are a power transmission distributor, and we had about $120 million revenue last year. This year, I guess we will be maybe a minus 15%. So our industry is quite struggling at the moment, and our focus is the OE business. So we have about 70% of our revenues OE, and the OE segment is quite struggling at the moment in Germany. And what is the speciality of our company? I always say we try to get better every week. And we try to really improve our processes and all the stuff we are doing. And we were very delighted that we were awarded last year. And I always say our goal is to be awarded next year. So our plan is not to reduce the speed. But at the moment, frankly speaking, it's quite challenging times. Yeah. So we do not see, at the moment, we hit the bottom, we think. So it's not getting worse at the moment. But we don't know if there is a second wave coming, and we guess, or our plans, our business plans are that we will have the same revenue maybe next year. So we do not see a big boom or something like this.
Yeah. So before we move on, I put this photo up here that you shared with me. Can you just tell us a little bit about why that is looking the way it is?
So I'm driving off-road competition with my wife, and we were driving last weekend. And so here it's 8 p.m. at the moment. So I had time to clean the car. So I was winching it to this small wall so that I can clean it better. So I used my time on Friday evening.
Sounds great. Thanks. I want to just, while we're on screen here, I just wanted to share this. I was at your main headquarters in Munich last year, and you were very gracious and took me around and gave me a great tour. Can you just explain a little bit about this? And I know we're going to talk about it a little bit here.
Yeah, so this is our distribution center, and it's the technique. It's called AutoStore. The biggest one in the world just was built by Puma in California. So maybe I think it's 20 times the size of our system. But for us, the good thing is it has a very high density. So we have 80,000 products in this small block, what you can see here. But what we think is even more important is that big part of the software that is working on the system was made by Ludwig Meister. So we can adapt it to our customized processes, and we do not have a standard software that gives us a lot of limitations. And maybe one figure. So when you buy an SKF product, what you see on the lower corner here, when you buy a SKF bearing, the total time in human hands in our logistics at the moment is 60 seconds, meaning identifying, booking, counting, packaging, special labels, and then putting into a box and send it to our customers. And this is our key figure in logistics. So this is what we try to improve, making less faults and becoming faster.
Yeah. Max, what did you call that metric? That's a really interesting metric.
That's the time that a product is in human hands in our logistics. So because we made all the software by ourselves, we know for each supplier and for each product how long we need, for example, in the receiving area. And when we have a problem, we are trying to get better there. So for example, we just started a delivery system with Parker, and they send us reusable bins. So we do not use any cartons anymore. So we use reusable bins, and all the information is in the barcode. So we just scan the barcode and book it on our bins, and then we can move the product. So the scan will work in September, but the process is already now working. And I think we can decrease the time from 60 seconds in the receiving area to maybe 30 seconds. So depacking is a lot of work.
And a lot of source for errors as well.
Yeah, right. And one last thing. So our vision is the frictionless supply chain. And we always try to decrease the amount of seconds we need in our purchasing department or in sales or in logistics, so that the supply chain is running.
And this was really a first step, Max, about 8 years ago or so, in terms of your commitment and your team's commitment towards a digital transformation, and really working on automating a lot of the processes. And just also for those on the call, last year I did a profile in MDM Premium in May about Max's company. As we follow up to this call with the slide deck, and I will also include a link to that for people to be able to read.
Yeah, I'm always happy to answer questions. So I'm on LinkedIn and also on Twitter, and you can connect me there. And if you have questions later on, just contact me. So I have the goofy name at Twitter. It's called Real Max Meister. And on LinkedIn, I think it's Max Meister 82. So just connect. I will be happy to answer questions.
And also a reminder is please use your chat or the Q&A function here in Zoom to ask a question at any time. And Mike and I are moderating and watching those all as well.
Now that you told me that, I will.
Thank you. Well,
oops.
That was in your contract, Mike.
Yeah, right. You're going to send that one of these days.
So So Max, talk a little bit about that journey that you've done in terms of, I know this aspect of the warehouse was one of the first steps, but talk a little bit about what your vision was and kind of the step-by-steps that you did to really continue this transformation process.
Yeah, so what we think is that digitalization is not a fancy web shop or website. It's more important to digitalize the processes in the background. So we started with purchasing, and then with logistics, and then with the website, and then we established an own CRM, because we were not finding a CRM that is matching our expectations. And we are not fan of SaaS software and only using 5%, but paying for 100%. So that's the greedy Germans. But for us, it's more important that the processes are very smooth. So one example, we handle about 80% of our purchasing volume with 5 full-time equivalents. So we have only code working in our purchasing department, and the people are only taking care of problems that occur in daily life. Because I always say a process that can be forgotten is a big problem, because I want to sleep well at night. So all the processes must go fully automatic. And also, honestly speaking, when we started with our vision of the frictionless supply chain, we weren't so sure if we really can go there or how long it will take us to really come to this place. But at the moment, we are very happy. So we just established a totally new purchasing software. We started in January. So really our purchasing department is working very, very lean at the moment. And the good thing is with our CRM, we have all our data of the ERP, of the web shop, of marketing. We have everything in one database. And we can create special campaigns in our CRM that creates specific tasks. So for example, if a lead time on a product is increasing, we can look fully automatic which customer needs this product and is used to get it from stock, or maybe within 14 days. And when we see it takes longer, we create a specific task for the inside sales guy. Please call this customer, ask him that we will get a problem maybe in 90 days because the lead times increase. Can we search for alternatives? Do you need more? Should we try to buy more at the moment? And I think this is a very valuable service for the customers, because we try to take care when we identify the problem, not when the customer calls because he expects the delivery today. So in the past, 10 years ago, a customer was on the phone, where is my product? And then we realized, oh, we have a problem. And now sometimes we already know maybe 90 days ahead or 180 days ahead that there will be a delivery problem. Yeah, so this is the short story, how we try to combine all the elements of our digitalized processes and try to create value for our customers.
And the as I recall, you started about 8 years ago and actually built your own ERP system, right? Your technology is your core technology is in-house. It's not something that you bought.
The ERP is a basic framework, and this is already working 100%, but we can customize this framework. So we didn't make our own ERP. We made our own purchasing software, logistics software, now pricing software, and stuff like this. But the ERP is a standard product.
Got it.
But the good thing is that we can take specific tasks out of the ERP with a web service, and we can use this web service, for example, in our receiving area as booking. So he's pressing booking in our software, but he's using the original function from the ERP. So it's a bit of combination.
Yeah, interesting. Tell us a little bit about, I guess, this year and the shifts that you had to make in terms of, I guess, with your team, and a little bit, and as far as the impact of the pandemic, and I guess as far as the technology, and I guess where I'm going with this, Max, is you know, if you hadn't made some of these changes, I think the year would be more difficult, because you've done a lot in terms of analytics and to really lean your operation to a point where it's just very efficient, and you've been working on this for a long time.
I think the digitalization helped a lot during times where the economy was good. So I think we increased our market share. In this year, I think that the effect of our CRM, for example, is a little bit lower than last year. Because in Germany, you have a tool, it's called working short. So it means we use less working hours, and so do our customers, and the employees get a benefit, or they get money from the state. So the biggest problem for us at the moment is that our customers have a very low availability. So they have many people in the home office, and this doesn't work really, and they're working less hours. So it's difficult for us to get in contact to the right people. So I think that maybe the effect is not as big as I hoped.
No.
But what we see is that our customers, they want to make more stuff like EDI connections, or in Germany also very important OCI. And we see an increase in demand. So I think this is positive for us. But the effects of our sales support is not as good as I hoped. So this is, maybe it could be worse, I don't know. But I'm very happy that we did it because we can track everything and we see everything. But I hope that when the economy now is getting a little better, then we maybe are better than the competition. But at the moment, I think it's all over the same level. Yeah. Because one last sentence, when you only have maybe 4 hours a day or working 6 hours a day, it's very difficult to really stay productive. And this is a challenge also for our people. So we sent home 170 people in home offices in March without a big plan. So, but with a big hustle. So, I think it helps, but not as much as I hoped.
Max, I got a couple take a step back questions that I was curious about. When you got the award, I really enjoyed reading the story that MDM posted. But the thing that kind of hit me, and again, I'm thinking primarily from North America here, you're roughly a $120 million company in revenue, and you have digital processes and transformation that's bigger than the multi-billion-dollar companies. And typically, when somebody's $100 million, it's like, I can't afford that. And I'm just wondering, did you bet the company, mortgage your life? I mean, how did you actually, at the scale you were, put something together that you actually could do all these things? Because you're miles ahead of a whole lot of other people that are way bigger.
So maybe here I have 2 books, and one is an MDM classic, so it's traction.
Yep.
And then there is, I don't know if you know, OKRs, objectives and key results.
Do not know that one.
So this is how we do it.
Okay.
This is one part. What I always say is, so we only have 4 developers in our company, but we have many people that think digital. So when you really describe a problem or a solution in a proper way, the developers can be much faster than if you say, it would be nice to have a CRM. But if you really plan out how it should look like, so I cannot code, I only can paint pictures.
Right.
And I think this helps a lot. And then really going step by step, not making a big picture and do nothing, but really step by step. And you have to accept that you have setbacks every week. And if you do this, I always say, if you make very small projects and you make 1, 2, 3, and then you see, oh, suddenly it's getting a big picture. So this is how we did it. So we really, and when we started a project, we finished it step by step by step by step. And suddenly you look back and you see, oh, that looks nice. And really it was that way. So Yeah, I think full management support. So I'm behind of this, but not as a mastermind, but I support it. And we have many people that really are thinking in digital processes, and this helps a lot. And then you have to make rocks and work every quarter. And I think this is one big part how it worked out for us. And then maybe on some points we also were very lucky. So we found a developer that was very good in this area, and then one thing's come to another. But just start small, and yeah.
Well, so here's the second question, and you did something that was very atypical when we look at because we've done Tom's done digital conferences, and we teach this at the university level. Most people, they want to start off with websites and everything else, and it's all about selling more. You were, I mean, most folks in the States would have said you did it backwards, but it worked because I don't understand. What did you do and why did you pick backwards?
We always say no over-promise and under-deliver. So for us, it's the most important thing is that we do what we say. Because I want to have confident people at our customer site. So we do not want to say, you can buy everything online and then it is not working. So that is why we started with the processes in the background. And the good thing is that the people get confident. So if the logistics work, if the purchasing department works, then the people get confidence. And I think this is the most important point for a sales guy, to be confident in your company, so that when you say something to your customer, you can rely on it and you know what is happening. And maybe biggest transition in logistics was, I thought that I have a clue about our logistics. But what I realized during automation and during digitalization, I realized that we have many more customized processes that I was not aware of. And for example, customized packaging, customized labeling, this customer wants to have a special delivery notes and all this stuff. And our people were able to really focus on it, and they were able to do it on every day. But when we tried to, or when we started integrating it, it was also step by step. So my head of IT, Stefan, he always says, it was not so tough. But I know it was very tough because we were I was in the logistics for 3 months, and we integrated process by process.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, all fine. And I called the customers where we screwed something up. So
yeah, there's a couple questions here, Max, and they're related really, because one says, given the extent of investment this digitalization requires, what's the expected payback period for the pieces of it? And the other question is, how does that way of building affect ROI versus building that front end first would be actually more revenue generating?
Okay, so I know Joe DeMarco, I think. I met him on a conference. Frankly speaking, I'm not good in calculating ROIs. Many of these things we have done because we thought it would be the right way. But I did not calculate every ROI for each project.
You did something from a financial point of view, and there's McKinsey and a lot of people are writing about what's wrong with traditional ROI on digital. What you did is the two ideas you did that everybody's bragging about now, at least in terms of best practices. You did this in little tiny pieces. Mm-hmm. So it's not an ROI on each piece. It's like your focus was taking friction out. And so you found something where there was friction. You did a bite-sized project to take it out. And basically by doing these little things, you were getting incremental payback or benefits by taking friction out. So you never have to do this giant, big ROI project.
Yeah, so what we have done is we were budgeting, for example, the logistics. So first step in logistics was 5 million euros. By the time, maybe 8% of our revenue. And we were, and the project was 1.5 years, and we were late 2 weeks. And wow. We were over the budget, about 10,000 euros. And my father still says that he needs these 10,000 euros for vacation. So, so we made budgets, but we stopped making budgets when we started with OKR here,
right?
And making quarterly goals. Because what we have seen is when we make budgets for IT projects, we had the problem that we had to spend too much time drawing the perfect picture how it should work in the end. And then we have seen when there's a change in plans during the project, we weren't able to really stuck with the project. And I'm a checklist guy, so when there's a budget, I want to hit it. And then we stopped making this.
Well, you're basically, I mean, you pulled a bunch of tool sets out of what's called Agile, and you're just kind of doing it in bite-sized pieces and getting there faster. And I guess the fancy word is that you failed fast, adjusted, and just got it done. Yeah,
sure. So for example, our CRM, when we started it, we wanted to have a better view on the customer for our salespeople, to have better analytics. And then we realized, wow, the very interesting insights through this analytics. And then the biggest part was fully automatic analytics of our customers' buying behavior. But we started it in the project.
Interesting. And Max, just for context, can you give us roughly what the revenues of the company were back, when you started this whole process 7 or 8 years ago?
So
just ballpark.
I think 65 million euros, 65 to 70, and then we grew to 100, and now we have a decrease. So this is roughly the journey. Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, you have undergone significant growth over the last 8 years as you did this step-by-step process. And that's why I wanted to provide that context, because when people talk about ROI, in the conversations we've had over the last several years, I just keep coming back to, you have positioned this company to continue to scale more effectively into the future, and not only scale, but also to manage the kind of a downturn we're experiencing this year as well. So
sure, and scale is very important for us. So there is maybe another book I really like.
And just a reminder, whenever anybody brings up something like this, we always follow up, and we'll follow up with links to the resources here that Max is talking about as well.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the best business books. It's called Scaling Up from Vern Harnish. And so we suck in a couple of KPIs. They are publishing, but we are working on it. And one thing is really, we want to have scalable processes. So when you look at seconds, how long we need for one order line, for example, we think about scalable processes. And so maybe, so it's our family company. So we looked at the processes, and suddenly you see that you really can save seconds. So for example, whenever everybody who's following me on LinkedIn, you can see that 4 weeks ago, I was working for almost a whole week in our logistics, because we were very high, we had a high pressure and not many hours to work. And really, you can find seconds everywhere if you really look into detail.
But it doesn't do you any good to find seconds if you don't have a measurement process to actually be able to see the results of your changes.
Yeah, that is right. But so maybe then that's my last source. I don't know if you know Paul Akers. He has 2 seconds lean. So they do not check any seconds, but they see the seconds, they see the waste, and they work on it. And I think this is also a very good method. So we tried it. It worked okay, but we want to do a restart soon. But I think if you can count the seconds, then it's perfect. So then it's easy. But if you can't do it, you can train your people to see waste. And this is already a big help. And you see it in digital processes too. So next week, I will work for 1 day as a sales making offers, inquiries. And I'm quite sure that I will see why I have to click here and click there and stuff like this.
So one question, Tom, for it. I know you got a schedule and we're always running late. The process you went through to get people to think digitally, I had this feeling, I just want to check, but it's actually now, this journey is now fun because it sounds like everybody in the company is on the journey.
No, I would say maybe 50 to 60%, 60 to 70, about that.
Okay.
And also, I don't think that everybody has to be on board, and not everybody has to think, oh, that's great, he has a new idea, that's perfect. No, I think that the people, the best thing that could happen to us is that the people trust us, that when we start something, and even if it doesn't work at all at the moment, so for example, our pricing engine we just started, maybe we have 50% of the prices right. But they trust us that in the end of next year, maybe we have 95% right. And I think this is the biggest issue, that the people have trust. Yeah.
Got it.
And,
thank you, Tom. I'm sorry, I'll stop asking questions.
Not at all. I have one more question for Max, actually, before we move on. And that is, you know, you've gone piece by piece in terms of transforming specific parts of the company. What's next on your agenda? What's next to transform? So actually, our biggest project at the moment is pricing. This is we just implemented, and we will need many months to really have a good pricing engine. And then we are working on implementing objectives and key results 100%, also in the sales team. This is maybe the biggest part at the moment. And we wanted to start with robo picking this summer, but we skipped it due to Corona. So I think in logistics, on the long run, we will try to implement robo picking. Yeah, just one question here. What's the pricing engine? Can you just talk a little bit about what you're doing in pricing right now? So the biggest difference is that we have so high percentage of OE. So this is a difference to the US in general. The pricing engine, the model behind is from Texas A&M, where we try to identify service training customers and customers with high profit. And the pricing engine itself is made by Ludwig Meister. So we have we made up a pricing matrix with A, B, C, and D customers and products in each product line. And then we put the prices into an external MongoDB database. I have no clue. Mm-hmm. And so it's very fast that we get the right prices out of the system. But right prices is relative. So maybe next year we will get the right prices. But Texas A&M is the basic model. Great. Thank you.
They've done some great work.
Yeah. Max, thanks so much for taking part of your Friday night, and always a pleasure to speak with you. I look forward to when we're together soon, and have a great weekend. And
I'd love to be a navigator for you in your next off-road trip.
Yeah, that's exhausting.
I scream a lot.
Okay, so I will listen for a couple of more minutes. So, sure. And then, I'm happy to discuss with everybody. So just contact me on LinkedIn. Thank you for the time, and I hope it was worth it.
Sounds great.
Thank you, my friend.
Take care.
Thanks. Take care.
So, Tom, is it time to share some slides?
It is, Mike. And let me just tee this up.
Okay.
So we are going to be having our sales GPS conference September 1st and 2nd. We'll be doing a pre-conference on August 31st. For those of you on the call who will be attending that, we'll be sending out more information. We're changing up the agenda a little bit due to the fact that we pivoted entirely to virtual. But as you know too, we've also changed this from just a single event to expand it out. We've already had 3 calls over the last previous 3 months. We are also going to be producing a sales transformation guide that will be coming out in October following the conference, but it's really going to compile not just the conference materials from this year, but really from the last 3 years as well as a lot of the other pieces of research that Indian River's done, as well as a lot of the content that we've generated around sales transformation as well. It's going to be a chaptered guidebook, and the goal of this is really to use as a playbook for you to create your own playbook, because we can't create a playbook for you. Every company has to create their own. And we really want to give you a tool for your team to be able to use to start working on this. It's been incredible over the last 6 months, the amount of interest that we've had in this. I think we're going to be well over 100. I know we're already at 100 plus, and we're going to be closer to 200, I think, by the time we get to the end of the month. And it's really going to create a strong network. We're going to have roundtables in the same way that we've done at these live events. We're going to have breakout rooms with non-competitors in the same way, and we're going to be programming in the ability to talk with your peers about some of these issues as well. That's been a key part of our conferences in the past, and we absolutely are teed up to continue that going forward. So with that, we'll be sending out more information next week. There's more information on our site if you're not signed up for that. And what Mike and I wanted to do today was really to bring out the key concepts that we're going to be working from. But whether you attend or not, I think this is really valuable based on where we are at this point in 2020 to really think about some of the key ways that you can shift and change your sales process. Mike, take it away.
Thank you. By the way, the sponsors that are listed at the bottom, if you think about sales transformation and analytics, every one of those sponsors offers services and products that can actually help people in their journey. So it's probably, they're in line with what we're doing. And the thing I'm really excited about in terms of this network is this digital media library. And I'm going to go through and share some things from the past GPS. We basically said that we were going to do this every year until the transition is done. We figured originally, this was over a bottle of wine, we figured it was probably had 10 years worth of legs. Nobody talks about what their fact strategy was back in the 70s. So this, at some point, this will be old news. I'm going to share a couple of highlights just to give everybody sort of a sense of what's in there. Tom, you're going to make these slides available to everybody, aren't you?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so what we basically did, and we found this out the hard way. Folks that come and say, I got to do sales transformation. I'm looking for a nugget or a good idea or change a pay plan. You're not going to get there. You're rearranging the deck chairs of the Titanic. The three foundations that go into this right now. What is your strategy? How do you create value to customers? Why do they buy from you instead of somebody else? And don't say service with excellent people. Once you figure out what your value proposition is, and look at what Max did with his cost to serve, about taking the friction and all the labor out of it, you then talk about what your sales structure is. I'll give you some examples, and then talk about systems. So basically what we do in the sales GPS, people are actually, we always had cases where distributors are sharing what they've done, but a lot of times we may dive into structure or systems. My partner, Mike Emerson, typically talks about changes in incentives. How do you get all that aligned? But you have to deal with all three of those pieces. And part of the reason, this was from Real Results Marketing and Sales GPS, I think it was 2018. And they did a survey of customers. I'm an old guy, I'm a baby boomer. And if I'm a large customer, look in the bottom right, I want a highly personal relationship. I want that person's cell phone and I can touch that button and they're going to jump through a hoop. But if you start to notice small customers, medium customers, large customers, just like Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman and Arthur Miller's play, I'm too old to be a sales guy now. The guys that I call on, and a lot of your people are getting close to retirement, they're starting to call on younger people. Look at that millennial and Gen Z. There's nothing in there about highly personal. People are changing how they want to buy. So if you're living on relationships, you're rapidly entering the best by date and leaving it behind. So what's happening in terms of the sales force, and again, this was Johnny Unitas, Super Bowl III, who is the last player that called his own plays. And he was beaten by Joe Namath. And fundamentally, this when we had offensive coaches and defensive coaches, and they had playbooks. And what's basically happened is that the sales rep of the future is not the Lone Ranger. They're still the point of the spear. People, they have visibility, they have accountability. The other people are accountable to them. and we had generalists. They did everything. They hand delivered products when it was an emergency, and they put things away sometimes, or did startup on a programmable logic control. But there's so many changes. We're moving away from generalists because it's very high cost. So what you're seeing, and this chart is there's a million versions of this, but it separates market making from market serving. Market serving is taking care of our existing customers and taking the friction out. And that's a big part of what Max was talking about. When you go back and read the MDM profile, Max has, I forget the number, but he's got like 6 inside guys for every outside. So the outside people are market making. They're disrupting the customer supply chain, so they choose Max's company. And so you use your sales force offensively. Nobody's going to go confess their supply chain problems to some anonymous website. We have to earn the right to have those discussions. And so you take your salespeople out of the recurring transaction piece and go to these specialized roles that you can see up here. This is just an example, and you can talk about customer capacity and what you pay them. The net result of this whole thing is that your selling costs as a percent of gross margin decline, and by taking specialized role, your service level and consistency increases. So this is across the board in every distribution vertical that's a part of NAW. A lot of what happens is we explore the various combinations and people share the rough spots in terms of the transition. We had some fun back at last year. Tom, I noticed you took the name off. Was that intentional so we don't say who it was?
No, the logo's down there. This is Kirk Zender's presentation at last year's Sales GPS from Ernest Machine. And just
he
for
rocked
context,
the world. He rocked the world with it.
Yeah, and just for context, it's a Cleveland-based specialty fastener wholesaler. So they sell through distribution, and it was a 3rd-generation family, and he was faced with some challenges in terms of how to shift his sales force around. And Mike, I can let you go through the rest of this, but
okay.
I wanted to give that context.
That's very good. But if you go back and think about these specialized roles here, this blows up the idea of the old generalist, the field guy's going to do everything. And one of the things that Kirk talked about, here's your tip. You got a bunch of outside guys. They're all, my territory is different. You don't understand. My customers are different. And then you had a sales manager and a bunch of inside salespeople. In terms of walking through the math, part of what Kirk did is he shared the thought process he went to. And based on the thought process that was discussed, this is the answer he came up with, which is very, very different. It's very non-traditional, but the results were outstanding, and the other parties are able to get people engaged. So we typically will have people come in, and there's an awful lot of discussion, and people, well, why did you do that? How come? What happened? What didn't work? And there's always something that didn't work. But the issue, it's just like Max was talking about, you do it in bite-sized pieces. It's a journey. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so we have, this is just one example. We have them every year. I want to talk a bit about data. If you notice that little green arrow, what has really happened, and this has exploded since the pandemic, there's a widening gap very rapidly right now between most distributors and those that are embracing analytics. What do the analytics do? If you think about planning, you're trying to take your money, your resources, the time of your salespeople, and allocate it to the opportunities and threats in the market and do it effectively. A lot of people do this without any data. They tell stories to each other. What analytics do is they allow you to do a better allocation of your resources to these opportunities and threats so that you're spending your money better, which lowers your costs and increases your revenue. So what's happening, I'm going to show you a couple examples real quick. A simple example, and this is part of the MDM analytics. So you go ahead and you come up, this is gear drives and speed reducers. You can say, again, we're supporting Max here, but you can come up with your product mix, whether you're electrical, plumbing, whatever. And I'll come up with by county for my given products, what is the total spend on products in that county? Then what I do is I take data like this and map out how many distributor locations are there. So if all of a sudden there's $50 million of total spend of electrical products in this particular county, and there's 10 distributors, my fair share would be $5 million. Now, we always know there's a market leader in each product category. There's something, so you can figure out, am I underrepresented, overrepresented? Do I need to be in that market? Am I too small? The idea is, instead of just telling somebody you need to grow, you need to do something different, you may have a branch that's too big, you may have a branch that's too small, but you have the data to figure it out. And this actually tracks all the way back to territory. This is actual data from a cutting tool distributor in Florida, and this is territory data. And what happens, instead of sales guys going, I get all the business in my territory except the low GP, and that's because you won't show me your true cost. What happens, everybody on the sales team, product specialists, inside salespeople, see the sales territory data of every field sales rep, and typically the inside salespeople may get paid an incentive based on the field salesperson hitting their number. So this takes, and don't have the time to go through it, but what is the total spend by customer? What are we spending with them? What is our share of wallet? And the thing that's interesting here, look at the yellow. What we're basically seeing, if you look at the numbers in the bottom, there's $16 million of spend in this territory on their product category. He's servicing $10 million of that spend, but $6 million of that spend, which are all the customers in yellow, he's not calling on. He says, you know, would they buy from my company? There's always a story. But if I own this company, do I want to ignore all those customers because my sales guys are uncomfortable calling on them? I want to service the spend. So the idea of analytics, it gives you the facts for informed decision making, so you spend your money better. And a big part of this is getting the analytics right. So the other thing that comes into this, people are held hostage. My partner, Mike Emerson, talks about this a lot, where how do you align the incentives? You define what it is you want people to do. What do I want my inside sales people to do? What do I want my customer service people to do? What are the KPIs? What do I want my field sales people to do if they're market making instead of market serving? But sometimes the customer says, well, here's the story. Manufacturer makes a hot dog wiener, lots of different wieners that you can go buy in a grocery store. The channel provides the bun and all the condiments, the chili cheese dog and the Chicago dog, and the customer only wants lunch. So there are sometimes the customer wants all that full service where they need the technical support and they'll pay a premium for it. Other times the customer will only just want to buy the wiener. That's basically what Amazon is. It's a stripped down version. So customers would choose these multiple choices, and a distributor, instead of trying to have one answer and force fit it on everybody, they create solutions for the customer. And a big part of what we've done, especially last year, was talking about how do these things coexist within the company. And sometimes people set up different SBUs and do the rest of it. This is the last, I know this has been a drink from a fire hose, and I'll let Tom get a word in edgewise. But when Tom shares the slides, one thing you might find, especially if you're considering going to the GPS conference we've got in 3 weeks, it would be to sit down with your team and actually just go through these 5 factors. And here's 5 factors if you really want to talk about sales transformation. On a 1 to 4 scale, and we picked 4, so you can't be in the middle, right? It's not a 5-point scale, you can go where in the middle. And by the way, you're not going to be a 4 on any of this unless you've got an explicit process that actually measures things. Think back to what Max just talked about, right? You actually have to know. But we describe what is a level 1, right? This is sort of the current state of where we are. And if you look at some of those descriptions, a lot of us fall into that category. I happen to know, since I looked at the people watching, there are a number of people that in several of the areas are already at 4. And so if you think about it, there's going to be, as we continue this journey and more companies get ahead, and especially as Tom alluded to, the rapid adoption of analytics. And what's the old saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. There are a lot of people that are making the investments in getting here. So if you're selling service with excellent people, you have long tenured salespeople that may get a little long in the tooth, but they've got great relationships. And you've had 20-year relationships with your key suppliers, you still need to provide them growth, and excuses don't work. You're going to be competing with distributors like Max. They're going to be up here. This is on the sales side. He started in the back room. But how are you going to compete with these people that have lower SG&A so they can sell below you at 2 points or 3 points below in terms of gross margin? They can sell cheaper than you can because they're buying basically at the same price because we have disciplined purchasing, but their SG&A expenses are lower, so they're still making the same profit at a lower one. And you're going to have to compete with that one way or the other. So that's the trade-off. And this was just, I know it breaks from a fire hose. And Tom, why don't you come on back? I just wanted to give people a sense of the kind of content that we go on in Sales GPS. So could you talk, Tom, just a bit more about the whole digital, wait a minute, I got one more slide, screwed it up here, sorry. This is what I want you to talk about. What does that digital media library look like, and what does that network of peers look like?
Sure. Well, thank you, Mike. And just quickly, there was a question here in terms of when you showed that Chicago power transmission market profile, somebody was wondering what the source of the geographic market potential was. And Mike was using the MDM analytics, the model that we have. And I'll be happy to follow up, Mike, with more information on that as well. So, I just thanks Mike for going through those as we pick those out. We talked about it really just to touch on all these different elements, and it's about the sales model piece of this and transitioning that. It's about the roles that you talked a little bit about as well. But it's some of the things that we talked about Max as well. It's part of this is digital transformation to support this kind of a process, to bring in the analytics, to get rid of those data-free conversations that you have talked about for 20 years. And this is just a great opportunity to do that now. Just as an aside, I used that line about not let a good crisis go to waste the other day with somebody, and usually it is attributed to Rahm Emanuel, the Chicago mayor and politician, long time. And the person said, "Well, do you know who originally used that?" And no. And he said, "Well, it was Machiavelli." So it was just the Italian writer who was the.
I'll go back and reread the Prince because it does serve some useful value within limitations, and that's a good catch.
Now, I haven't fact checked that, so it could be fake news. So I just want to be careful about that.
You have a lot of company.
So we've got a few minutes left here. We didn't mean this to be a sales pitch or a commercial. Whether you can join us or not at the end of this month, in the beginning of September, this is really such an opportunity this year, and we just wanted to share some of the key pieces that a lot of people I know have come back to both of us over the last few years in terms of what's really moved the needle for them, just to take a few of these concepts one at a time and apply. So many people have been taking what Kirk Zender did at Earnest Machine in terms of that shift from more of a traditional structure for sales process and rebuilt the team part of it. And again, I'll include this with this call. We've got a lot of resources this week, but we did an article that profiled what Kirk's transformation was in MDM a few years ago as well. We'll include that in terms of links for that. What we shared today, plus so much more, is going to be part of this digital media library. We're going to be launching the first version of that late next week, and for all the members of the sales transformation that we created when we flipped to from just the 2020 Sales GPS conference to the Sales Transformation Network throughout the year. We'll be following up with all the members with access to that library. And again, with just a growing set of resources ongoing through the rest of this year as well.
I want to add something in there, Tom, and that's that it's one of the things I think where Texas A&M has done a really great job is they put together groups of people where they can actually talk to each other about common problems, where Texas A&M does research and brings data in. And it's a completely different deal to listen to me do some death by PowerPoint and to sit down with a group of peers that are doing the same thing and being able to talk it through. One of the main things that people talk to me about the Sales GPS, and we've got people that have been in every one of them. I mean, all three, and we're with you till the end. but being able to sit and talk to somebody that's actually going through this and just kind of, well, what happened? What do you think? What did you forget? What do you wish you knew at the time? Having those conversations really makes it a lot easier to chart your own course.
Yeah.
You know, because you can only so much you get by reading. We're still analog beings in a digital world. We need to talk to each other, even if we're wearing these stupid masks.
Yeah. And part of that digital media library, actually, for all of those, because we're the Sales GPS conference, all these sessions and materials are going to be on demand through the end of 2020 for all those who have registered for that as well. So if you can't attend live, you can come join us and get access to that through the end of 2020. So that's the end of my sales pitch on that. Well, one more piece, because we will also, in addition to that, we'll be having monthly calls in both October and November as follow-up as well. So because this is going to be an ongoing process, and every month we keep learning new things, and basically the network keeps on growing. So we get some new inputs into it as well. So I guess
I'd like to be free before you cut this off, because I know this will be the first time you're able to end at least 1 minute early. I'd like to just say something else on that ROI thing. When I came up, you know, as a young person running a company and doing those kinds of things, ROIs on investments, you look at digital is like essentially you treat it like a capital investment, and it's a project, and what's it going to cost? What's the payback? It's not a terribly useful model. Big companies still kind of follow it because they're kind of hostage the way they've always done it. But the agile process and progressive elaboration of the Project Management Institute, there's a number of techniques where you don't have to do ROI at all. What you basically say is, instead of we're going to do this big project and when we get done, we're going to be rich over at this end. What we're doing is we're doing little things that take friction out, that I can tangibly see the results. And by getting the tangible results, by taking friction out, it's additive. We know we're going in the right direction. What we basically say is that we're in New York, we want to go to California. It's the 1800s, we're going to get a covered wagon. We don't know how to get across the Rockies, but we figure as long as we're going west, we'll get there. When we get to Kansas City, we'll buy some maps. But the idea is speed, because this happens so fast. By the time you do a big project, you've designed to the wrong objective. So the idea is, how can you do this rapidly? And when you look at the people that won those digital awards, I'm not sure if there were any of them that were doing ROI work. Most of them were very much following Max's process. So, I mean, this is happening so fast that you don't want to use these old lumbersome techniques of tech, you know, that we learned when I went to college back in the 70s. It's the world's different. I mean, people aren't even doing the leading edge on finance now. We're not even closing accounts and reconciling journal entries on a monthly basis. It's all real time. I mean, accounting has changed dramatically because of digital, and most of us are still doing this stupid annual plan thing. Sorry, I don't mean to.
Well, that's exactly why I was excited today about bringing Max on and the conversation that you led on the sales pieces, because, and we talked about this before, that there are real gaps forming right now from those companies that are transforming to more of an agile model and bringing that in terms of how they operate as a team. And it's out of the silos and, you know, very structured, kind of departmentalized business structures that we all have grown up with and lived in all our lives. And it's a difficult transition. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty that can come with that if you don't have sort of the right pieces in place and structures. And most importantly, I think it's the people. What I found, one of the really interesting things that Max said is, you don't need 100% of people on board this. You know, on board it. You just need the right people on board it, and then you need the trust of the rest of the people that you're going to get them to the place they need to get. And that to me is a really telling comment about how you focus. You know, it's critical to communicate in terms of what's happening, but in terms of actually making it happen efficiently, I obviously I have got a lot of respect for where Max and his leadership team have taken the company.
Speed is a weapon. Thank you, Tom. I'll catch you on the rebound, my friend.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mike. And I also would just like to thank all of those of you who joined us today on an August Friday afternoon to spend a little bit of time with us. And hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll be back with at least one program of MDM Live in the middle of September, and we'll be following up with more information on that. Thanks.
Take care, everybody.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.